I hope you're going well. We're here in week 2 of term 4 in 2021. So I know some of the videos that you saw last term might have been a sort of a reused one from last year. This one is brand new, it's fresh. I was going to do a Zoom with you today, but I've got a meeting that's going to be taking place at a very similar time, and I just couldn't run the risk of not being able to be there. So I figured if I pre-record this, you'll be able to click into it. I'll flip you through exactly what I was going to work through in the PowerPoint, and I will show you the same tasks that you were going to do if we were on Zoom. You can do them by yourself. I'll also be available via email while I'm in my meeting, so there's no issue with just sending me an email at any stage. So I'm just going to flip over. Obviously, you've seen the lesson plan, and my video will be in this link spot here. You're going to watch it, you're going to take some notes, okay, and then you've got 2 tasks to do. The first task will be to complete the scenarios on slide 12, and the second task will be to create a table like you see on slide 13. So the PowerPoint is obviously in our resources, okay, and it is this first aid PowerPoint under the week 2 folder of term 4. And I just wanted to show you, once you get to this PowerPoint, which has this as its title page, the tasks that you'll need to complete are to respond to the situations given, 2 situations, and then to create this table. So you may even want to draw this table up now, and then as I work my way through DRSABCD, you can be filling the table in as you go. That might complete one of the tasks a bit more efficiently. Okay, well, I'm going to start cracking on to this now. So, today we are learning about first aid. And first aid is actually all about the first person who arrives on the scene when somebody is hurt, injured, or ill and needs help. You are the first person to give them aid or assistance, okay? Now, there are some very basic principles and procedures that I'm going to talk to you about today, and hopefully when we get back in person we might be able to practice some of these, because we do have some mannequins at school that we can practice this on. But if there is an accident, you are just going to follow through what you have learnt to try and keep someone safe and alive as best as you possibly can. Okay, if your friend is in an accident or collapses, okay, the first person there is the first aider, and you will provide whatever aid that you are taught and feel safe to do until emergency services arrive. So the most important thing that you can do for someone if they need first aid is to call for help. Okay, this is the most important thing you can do, because by ringing 000, or you can also ring the number 112, which is easy to remember because 1 + 1 = 2. By ringing either of those numbers, even if you have no reception on your mobile phone at that time, it will find a satellite dish that they can call off and use, and you will get in touch with the operators, and the operators will ask you whether you need fire, police, or ambulance, okay? And then they'll go through a series of questions, and I'll talk to you about the series of questions momentarily, okay? But it is really important that you get onto them as quickly as possible, because in order for an ambulance to come and help your friend or family member or somebody that you've just walked past in the street, it takes time for them to drive there and get there. And so the earlier that you ring, the earlier they can be there, okay? And there are a lot of statistics that show the earlier that first aid is applied and the earlier that an ambulance arrives, the higher the percentage of somebody's survival rate in an emergency situation, okay? So you need to be able to explain to them, while you are a little bit stressed, what your name is and where you are. Now, if you have the exact address, fantastic. But otherwise, if you were to say something like, I am at Camberwell High School, they will know exactly how to find that. They can track your mobile phone, but it takes a little bit longer. However, knowing exactly where you are, they might say, do you know what street you're on? Is there a landmark nearby? Meaning, can you see a big specific building that's a specific colour? Okay. This one's a really important one that a lot of people forget. You need to explain what happened if you know what happened, but also how many people need help. Because there's a difference between sending one small ambulance for one person or multiple ambulance or large ambulance that can cater for multiple people. So if it's been something like a car accident and that car had multiple people in it, you would need to make sure that you inform the ambulance drivers and the operator exactly how many people are in need of aid, first aid, when they're going to arrive with the emergency services. Okay, so think about that. Just listen to their instructions carefully, okay, and do not hang up until they say that it's okay to hang up, and most likely they will try and keep you on the phone until the ambulance arrives. Now, if you wish to, there's a really cool YouTube here. It doesn't have any images or anything. It is actually a real life phone call that a young, I believe, 8-year-old boy in England made when his mother was not responding to him in the house, and he actually saved her life by ringing the ambulance, and they talked through a series of questions. And so if you want to, pause my video, go and listen to that one, really interesting, and then you can come back to this video. Okay, so your friend, somebody that you know, somebody that you don't know, you've come across them and they are lying on the floor and they look like they're sleeping, but you know something's wrong here. Okay, you might see that there's a ladder that's tipped sideways, maybe they've fallen off. You might see that there's a puddle of water on the ground or some electricity or something has happened. You need to follow these letters. Doctors, ABCD. DRS, ABCD. And each of those letters is in a specific order, doctors, A, B, C, D, and each of the letters stands for something you need to do. So D is danger, R is response, S is to send for help, A is airways, B is breathing, C is compression, and D is defibrillation. Now let's go through each of these. Danger and response, the doctor part. When you arrive at the scene, the first person you need to make sure is not in danger is yourself. There is no point in going to help somebody if there is an electrical wire sitting in a puddle of water. They've clearly been electrocuted. If you go in to try and help them straight away, you are going to get electrocuted. Now the ambulance needs to deal with 2 unconscious people instead of just the 1. So you need to make sure that any of the dangers are either safely removed or the person is safely removed from the danger themselves. If you cannot feel safe enough to remove the person or the danger without hurting the person or hurting yourself, then you do not approach the person and you simply try and provide them help without touching them. Okay, so danger is the most important to yourself and then the injured person, and then keeping other people back. The next one you want to try is response. Now, you actually want to see, hang on a minute, is this person just sleeping or have they lost consciousness? Okay, so the way that you do that is that you can do a couple of things. I like to start at the person's feet. If you start all the way at the person's feet and they were just sleeping, they're unlikely to sit up out of fright and sort of grab you. So by starting down at somebody's feet, you approach with the COWS method. COWS, C-O-W-S, you're going to follow those letters and say the following things. Can you hear me? Open your eyes. What's your name? Squeeze my hands. Now, I'll go through each of those things for the COWS method and what to do for response, okay? You want to start down at the feet and maybe even tap their feet with your foot. And you're saying, can you hear me? Now, if somebody's sleeping, they're probably going to awake at this point and you don't need to alarm at all. As you're saying open your eyes because you didn't get a response from can you hear me, you are starting to kneel down next to the person. At this point, if they haven't opened their eyes, you need to be able to hold both of their hands. So you're kneeling next to their body and you're holding both of their hands. You're starting to ask them, what's your name? What happened here? There's still no response. Now you're asking, squeeze my hand if you can hear me. Now this sounds a little bit silly. However, if you listened to the video that I asked you to on that YouTube page earlier, a couple of slides ago, you would notice that the lady in question had had a stroke. One half of her body had stopped functioning properly. And so if somebody is able to squeeze one of your hands but not the other hand, that might start indicating something that you could let the operator know as the ambulance is on their way. But as you're slowly approaching this person from their feet, kneeling down next to them and then holding both their hands, you're giving plenty of opportunity for the person to be able to respond if they didn't hear the first time. The other reason why we ask them to do an action like squeezing their hands is because something might have happened in their brain where they can't speak, but they might be able to perform an action. So that is another reason why we ask, can you hear me? Open your eyes, what's your name? And squeeze my hands, and we use both hands for that. If somebody responds to you, they're conscious, you turn them onto their side in a safety or recovery position and you wait for the help to arrive. If there is no response, that means that they are unconscious and you need to apply the following steps. Now remember, it's doctors ABCD, so now we're on to the S. The S is to send for help. This is the point where you ring 000. The reason we don't do it beforehand is because we need to know things like, is the person conscious or unconscious, okay, and what sort of help they might need. So it is best if you could ask somebody else to ring 000 because that is going to save you a lot of time. If not, you can ring, put it on speakerphone and continue with the following steps. Now we've done doctors, we're on to our ABCD. A stands for airways. Sometimes someone has become a little bit unconscious because there's something blocking their throat. They're not getting enough air through their windpipe. So the way that we do that is that we do a head tilt. We tilt the head backwards by lifting the chin while the casualty is lying on their back. Sometimes there is an object like the tongue or maybe some vomit or broken teeth or something that is in this person's throat. The easiest way to clear out the airways is to use the person's own fingers in a scooping motion to clear out the blockage. So what we mean by this is we have our casualty lying on the ground. We use our own hands in what we call a pistol grip, where we put the thumb on the top of the chin and we wrap the index finger underneath and we lift the head back. Then we can open the mouth to tilt the chin back forward, and we would use somebody else's hand, that person, that casualty's hand, to scoop out anything that you can see into their mouth at that point. That could unblock the airways and cause this person to become conscious all of a sudden. The reason why we use their own hand is because if they do bite down, you don't want to get your hand hurt, so make sure you use their hand when scooping something that's visible out of the airways. So pistol grip, tilt the head back, open the jaw up, and scoop anything out with their own hands. So now we've done our doctor's A and we're on to our B. B is for breathing. We want to look, listen, and feel. So you are going to bring your head right down to their nose and mouth. You are going to turn your head sideways so that you are looking towards their chest. You are looking to see if the chest is going up and down, up and down. You are listening in your ear to hear any air coming out of their nose or mouth, and you are trying to feel any air onto your cheek from their nose or mouth. If the person is not breathing after you've checked for a few seconds, you can provide 2 quick rescue breaths. The way that we do this is by pinching the nose, using our pistol grip to open their mouth, and applying 2 large breaths into their body. Don't forget that after you've provided the breath, you need to give them time to be able to exhale that air, because even if they're not conscious, once the lungs fill, the lungs will depress and bring that air out anyway, okay? So we're over the top of the victim. We've already tilted the head back and opened the mouth. Now we're going to pinch their nose. We're going to place our mouth over theirs and we're going to breathe in. We then do our look, listen, and feel head turn again. We feel the air come back out, we listen to it, and we look at their chest depressing, and then we go with one more. That is our 2 quick rescue breaths. Sometimes someone might start coughing and come back to consciousness at this point. If not, we've done our 2 breaths and we need to move on to the C part of DRSABCD. C stands for compressions or CPR. Okay, what we do with CPR is that we place both of our hands onto the middle of the chest, the sternum area. It is in the lower half, right across where the nipples would line up. You lock your fingers together and you apply your body weight with straight arms down in doing 30 compressions. How quickly do we do them? We do them as if we were trying to squeeze 100 into a minute, or we sing the song Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees, or Row, Row, Row Your Boat. And after we've done our 30 compressions, we give another 2 breaths and we repeat this process. I'll just show you what that grip looks like on somebody's chest there, and then I'll show you as well that we have interlocked our fingers like this. We are using the heel of our palm to push down on that person's chest right in between their nipple line, and we do row, row, row your boat. We keep that momentum for 30 compressions, and then we go into our pistol grip, nose clamp, open up, 2 breaths, look, listen, feel, breath, look, listen, feel, lock fingers, and back into that motion again. Okay, this is the tiring part because now you need to keep up 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths until the ambulance or help arrives. When you see the ambulance coming down the road, don't stop. Wait until they've parked, opened their back door, pulled the stretcher out, and they've come over and said, we will take over now. You can do this with multiple people, so you can have one person kneeling on one side of the casualty near their head doing the 2 breaths while you are simply doing the compressions, okay? And when we get back to school, we'll talk as well about what do you do if it's a very small child compared to a large adult? How much pressure do you do, whether you do 1 hand, 2 hands, or just 2 fingers for a baby? We'll talk about that, but right now it's really important that you understand. Somebody needs first aid. Doctors A, B, C, D. We do 30 and 2 after the 2 rescue breaths because we've already checked for danger, response with the COWS method, send for help for 000, and we answered all the questions that you were going to have to answer. Airways, breaths, compressions. Now we're up to the final part. The D stands for defibrillation. You might not always have one of these available, but if you do, because you're at a sporting ground or a shopping centre, you can put these together very easily. This is an electronic device that shocks the heart back into rhythm if somebody's heart has stopped beating. These sticky pads go onto the chest of the person, as you can see with that diagram there, and the plug goes into the machine. This machine speaks to you in very slow and plain English terms, and it will tell you what to do to actually use it. I'm actually going to leave it for today. There are plenty of videos online, and there's actually a really good one that I can show you when we're back in person that talks you through how to use one of these machines. It's always best to get somebody else to be setting it up while you're continuing your 30 compressions and 2 breaths. But don't forget the most important thing. When the machine tells you, stand clear of casualty, shock commencing, you will need to move away and do not touch the person that you've been giving the 2 breaths and the 30 compressions to, because if the machine shocks that person while you are touching them, you will receive that shock as well. However, all of the machines these days are able to pick up a heartbeat, so it will not shock while it is feeling your presence, okay? These automated external defibrillators, or AEDs, have started more hearts and saved more lives than any other device. They are fantastic. Now that I've been through all that, I want you to read these two scenarios and write your responses of what to do in detail. Dot point is fine. And I want you to fill in that table if you haven't already. Hopefully, and I know I went quick through this, some of that makes sense. Feel free to email me with any questions. I'll respond to you even though I'm in my meeting. And good luck today.